Hey, Richard here, Facts Working People. This is just going to be a little quick few comments. Friends in Europe and the UK and Ireland and places like that, they will tell me about how, or we'll hear from them how we, back there, they focus more, they don't focus on race enough, they just deal with the socio-economic, and here, there they will say we seem to be focused too much on race and not the social economic, and I tend to agree with that. Well, a bit of both. They're both valid criticisms. You've got to have a balance. But the thing is, like I was watching the news the other day, and it was my local news, and it was talking about a little town called Fairfax in Marin County. Marin is a wealthy county. I go through it a lot because when we go to the coast, you have to drive through these towns, Ross and Fairfax. Those are a couple of them, and I stop there sometimes, grab a coffee or a breakfast or a bite to eat, and so it was about Fairfax, and it was about how there's a lack of people of colour living in Fairfax, and it gave a percentage, only a tiny amount of people of colour. And then they interviewed a couple of people. I think one of them might have been, I don't know if he was just a resident, but he might have been a politician. And yes, he said it clearly was a problem. But the problem is the house prices, you know. That's how they kept blacks out here, the same way in this small town here. I got a little video that somebody posted on that I want to put up and comment on it. But so anyway, he said yes, it's not just, it's more complicated. It's the cost of housing and blah blah blah. Well, so that's all well and good, but the question is, it doesn't. If you only deal with the question of the different colour of people, it doesn't point to the fact that hundreds of thousands of white workers would not be able to live there. White working class people, in the main, do not live there, and of course they don't not live there because they're the colour of their skin, but it leaves out completely the class question. So they will show on television here about racial disparity. Oh well, there's not many black people living in Fairfax or so forth, but they won't talk at all about the social economic aspect of it. I mean, most people would not realise that most of the poor people in this country are white people. Probably most of the people in jail are white people. I haven't looked that up. But the problem is, of course, for the black people and people of colour in general, but black people in particular, is that it's the percentages that are so drastically disproportionate. And that's because of racism. But the thing is here, they just ignore completely the question that there's a different class of people that live in Fairfax, middle or upper middle class, or even beyond. If you get up you go up the hill a little in Tam. I mean, you're talking it's real big money. So there's a class. There's a huge class divide there. So to not mention that is conscious, because the idea here is everything's fine. It's just black people have got a problem. And of course, then you end up blaming them themselves. How come they aren't doing this, or they aren't doing that? When it's a vastly more wide the problem of inequality, poverty, and so forth in this country, and it's a whole crosses all racial bounds. I just wanted to, because it's so frustrating when I watch that. It's, well, I can't live there, and I'm not a poor person, but I can't live there, you know. And so anyway, that's one of the big issues here, that it's clearly, obviously, for socialists, you have to deal with oppressed minorities, especially oppressed minorities, racism, sexism, the disabled, all those marginalised people in capitalist society that abandoned, the incarcerated and everything else. That all has to be taken into account, and you have to have a programme and a strategy for dealing with it. But it's used here to completely. Even workers call themselves middle class here. It's an attempt to simply not just obscure but completely hide the class question in America. Everybody can make it if you just work a little harder and put your mind to it. You know. Anyway, just a few quick thoughts. Fancied checking out a new little stand I've got. All right, Richard Miller, Facts for Working People. Our URL of our blog is We Know What's Up, one word, no apostrophe. We know what's up.blogspot.com.